Thanks for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm Mark Martin. Today, the House of Representatives passes a debt ceiling bill to avoid a possible government default. Although many Republicans felt the measure did not go far enough, Speaker Kevin McCarthy says he's not giving up the fight. What impact did COVID have on Americans' spiritual beliefs? Troubling new statistics show major changes in people's views about God and their commitment to spiritual growth. Why did the shooter attack a Christian school in Tennessee, killing 6 people? Federal and local authorities are still withholding details of the shooter's manifesto. We'll hear from Judge Jeanine Pirro of Fox News about what their agenda might be. And God told a Texas businessman to help provide clean drinking water to people around the world who don't have it. We'll look at how technology has already helped hundreds of thousands and helped to spread the gospel. Those stories and more today on CBN News Watch.
This is CBN News Watch.
We begin in Washington, where with little time to spare before Monday's projected debt ceiling deadline, the leadership of the Senate says they'll move fast to vote on a bill passed by the House, allowing the government to spend more money. The vote late Wednesday came after weeks of fierce opposition to the bill by some Republicans and Democrats. George Thomas has the story.
Democrats and Republicans in the Senate say they'll now move quickly to get the bill to the president's desk ahead of Monday's debt limit deadline.
No one on either side would call this agreement perfect. No one got every single thing they wanted. That's why it's a bipartisan agreement.
I can tell you what I hope happens is that those who have amendments, if given votes, will yield back time so that we can finish this Thursday or Friday and soothe the country and soothe the markets.
Yeas are 314, the nays are 117. The bill is passed.
Late Wednesday, after rancorous objections from hardline Republicans and Democrats, the House finally approved the 99-page bill allowing the government to borrow more money. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy hailed the package deal as the biggest cut and savings Congress has ever made.
I wanted to make history. I wanted to do something no other Congress has done. That we would literally turn the ship.
The Congressional Budget Office says the cuts would result in $1.5 trillion in spending over the decade. But some Republicans,
this deal fails completely.
Wanted even more spending cuts and more concessions in exchange for raising the debt limits. Arizona Republican Eli Crane tweeted, "More Democrats voted for this historic conservative victory than Republicans. What a joke." Ahead of Wednesday's vote, Republicans, including those from the House Freedom Caucus, urged their colleagues to vote against the bill.
Tomorrow's bill is a bunch of fake news and fake talking points that will do nothing to rein in out-of-control federal spending. If every Republican voted the way that they campaigned, they would vote against tomorrow's bad deal, because this is the very thing that we all campaigned to put an end to.
In the end, even though 71 House Republicans voted against the bill, 165 Democrats backed the measure, eventually pushing it past the finish line. George Thomas, CBN News.
One big government expense in the last few years was getting the country through COVID. Those difficulties have passed, but the fallout from COVID is having a huge impact on faith in America. Troubling new statistics show significant changes in people's views about God and their commitment to spiritual growth. CBN's Billy Hallowell explores how the pandemic fueled these sobering shifts.
A new survey reveals the stunning impact COVID-19 had on Americans' religious perspectives. The percentage with a biblical worldview has plummeted to just 4%. Dr. George Barna, director of the Cultural Research Center, finds the results of the American Worldview Inventory report alarming.
First of all, much more extensive than we actually expected. Typically, you don't find that religious beliefs change very much. They're probably the most stable of the factors in a person's life, because they relate to worldview that's formed when you're young and it doesn't change much as you age.
Dr. Barna adds that crisis moments like the pandemic can also spark surprising shifts.
We found a number of things that changed in terms of their views of truth, their views about God, their own assessment of their spiritual commitment, some of their moral perspectives, going to church, reading the Bible, acknowledging their sins and asking for forgiveness. Those kinds of things all shifted pretty dramatically.
And the changes aren't limited to the secular world. Only 44% of born-again Christians believe Jesus didn't commit any sins during his life on earth, down from 58% in 2020. And the percentage of those who see a God-given calling or purpose for their lives declined by almost half, from 88% to 46%.
We've really got to sit back and think intelligently and strategically about what are we doing in reference to worldview. As we look at that, what we find is parents are doing next to nothing intentionally. Churches are doing next to nothing intentionally. And so what's happening is that every child is out there as a free moral agent trying to figure out the world. And I say child because a person's worldview is almost fully formed by the age of 13. So it's really with children that we have to focus on what are we going to do to develop that worldview.
Digital evangelist Matt Brown, founder of Think Eternity, agrees.
We need to do the things that Jesus told us to do now more than ever, because there's just never been a time that's more important that we preach the gospel, that we share the message of Jesus with the people around us, that we disciple the next generation. It's so important that we give the next generation a biblical worldview.
Dr. Barna believes church closures during the pandemic and other policies left people shaken up and confused. Still, despite the dire numbers, hope remains.
I think we've still got a little bit of a window of opportunity here where people are trying to figure some things out. This would be a great time for disciple makers to say, you know what? I'm going to start speaking to these issues that are on the minds and hearts of people today. I'm not going to go into esoteric theological conversations. I've got to deal with what people are really wrestling with.
And while the situation might seem sobering or even insurmountable, Brown says starting small and clinging to truth can make all the difference. Billy Hollowell, CBN News.
Coming up, why did the shooter attack a Christian school in Tennessee, killing 6 people? The parents of the shooters say they have no objection to releasing police reports. So why are federal and local authorities still withholding details of the shooter's manifesto? We're going to hear from Judge Jeanine Pirro of Fox News when we come back. Welcome back to NewsWatch. Parents of students attending Nashville's Covenant School have filed a legal objection to the release of shooter Audrey Hale's manifesto. They say keeping the details of the transgender shooter's motives private would protect people from, quote, a lifetime of abuse and harassment by the shooter from beyond the grave. But the parents say they have no objection to releasing police reports or summaries of the crime that killed 3 9-year-old children and 3 adults. So why are federal and local officials still withholding details of the shooter's manifesto after more than 2 months? On this week's episode of The Global Lane, Judge Jeanine Pirro, host of the Fox News program The Five, suggests they may have another agenda.
They say the FBI gave as a reason for not releasing the manifesto of the transgender shooter. They say that it would be too dangerous. I don't know what that means, and I don't think anybody knows what that means. But ultimately, I think that there may be, another agenda going on. I can't imagine what it is. I can't tell you what's in their minds, but I don't know why we could see everybody else's manifesto and not this one.
As a former prosecutor, I've got to ask you to share your thoughts on what many Americans believe is a 2-tiered justice system with political prosecutors and a politicized FBI.
The top echelon of the FBI needs to go. I think we learned from Jim Comey that he wasn't beyond corruption and lying to Congress and getting out there and protecting Hillary Clinton from the email scandal, saying no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute her. Well, he's wrong. I would. No one was fired in that Clinton email scandal and in the Russia collusion delusion, which the Durham report convinced us and reported there was no collusion with Russia. And in fact, Hillary Clinton made it all up, and she told Barack Obama and Joe Biden that she was going to make up this hoax to get the press off of her email scandal and her erasing 33,000 emails, which is obstruction of justice, destruction of evidence, as well as classified documents. So, you know, the FBI has to be revamped. The main level of men and women are fantastic. I've worked with them for decades, but the upper echelon has been politicized, and we've seen it. And I actually talk about it in Crimes Against America. We've seen it in terms of Hillary and in terms of Donald Trump, you know, lying to a FISA court and then going back to a judge to re-up a warrant. If attorneys came before me and put a false affidavit before me that they knew was untrue, I'd have their law license. They would never appear again. But Jim Comey never fired anybody. He never suspended anybody, and neither did Christopher Wray. So whether it's Strzok, Page, McKay, Comey, Christopher Wray, it's all the same nonsense.
So how do we reverse course? Are elections the only answer? Because voters in left-leaning cities like Chicago keep electing leftist leaders and prosecutors.
Well, I think the problem can only be solved when people understand that the election of district attorneys is far more important than they ever realized. I ran for DA 3 times. I was elected, reelected, and reelected. And the truth is that one of my messages to my community, which is a Democrat community, and I'm a Republican, conservative, independent, my message was, you need me. You need me because I'm a tough prosecutor. I'm going to make sure that your businesses stay in business, that your home values continue to go up, that your children and your families and you are safe. That is the obligation, that the first order of government. And when you have prosecutors who are convinced that the criminals are the victims and they let them out of jail, or we have this nonsense social justice cashless bail absurdity, as though bail is some unnecessary imposition. Bail is in the 8th Amendment to the Constitution. So, and you've got to make sure that you don't elect an insurance lawyer to be the DA. They know nothing about prosecuting. And you've got to make sure that people on the school board share the same values that you do, that they don't believe in transgender education and indoctrination to our kids. And that's the most important thing that we can do, is these low-level races are extremely important. And I talk about this in Crimes Against America. That you can get on Amazon or judgejbooks.com, judgejbooksingular.com. What you need to do, how you need to argue, and what has happened to this great nation. You know, America is that shining city on the hill, and I want to keep it that way, just the way Ronald Reagan described it.
Okay, the book is Crimes Against America, The Left's Takedown of Our Republic. Judge Jeanine Pirro, thank you for sharing your insights. It's a pleasure talking with you. God bless.
And you can watch The Global Lane tonight on the CBN News Channel at 8:30 Eastern. You can also see it on the CBN News app or on YouTube. Still ahead, we're going to bring you a look at one man's bucket list, how he delivers clean drinking water around the world. So far, he's up to 20 countries. He'll show us the technology that's already helped hundreds of thousands of people and helped to spread the gospel when we come back. Thanks for staying with NewsWatch. A Texas businessman on a mission trip asked for a glass of water and came face to face with a stark reality. Most people in the world don't have access to safe drinking water. At that moment, Chris Beth heard the Lord speak 2 words: help them. 10 years later, 250,000 families in 20 nations now have clean water, and they're hearing the gospel as well. Charlene Aaron brings us this story.
From its headquarters here in North Texas, the Bucket Ministry is fulfilling its mission of sharing the love of God through providing the gift of safe, clean drinking water in places like North America, South America, Central America, Asia, and Africa.
We have probably distributed filters in almost 30 countries now. We're actively working in about 12 countries.
During a 2012 missions trip with his daughter to the Brazilian Amazon, Texas businessman Chris Beth saw firsthand what it meant to not have access to clean water after being asked if he was thirsty.
I expected her to go into a refrigerator and get a bottle of water. But what she did in turn is she went out into this little plank on this house, bent down with 2 cups. They were irregular, they were mismatched and cracked, and she filled these 2 cups up with river water.
Shocked by what he saw, Beth says what happened next was something he never imagined.
I've never been in the business of hearing God's voice. In fact, I thought when people said, God told me, I would think, oh boy. Yeah. And so I heard something, and I heard 2 words, and he clearly said, help them.
Beth began searching for a way to help as soon as he returned home. He found the answer at a Dallas camping supply store, where Beth saw a filter that uses the same technology as kidney dialysis that could be used to remove harmful bacteria from dirty water.
It attaches to any bucket or receptacle. I've went ahead and put some lake water in here from the local lake, so we'll see if we can make some clean water from this. So we'll tip the filter down and allow it to start filtering into the clean cup. And as you can see, the water is going from the bucket, through the hose, through the filter. The filter is capturing all the dirt, the debris, the parasites, everything that's making people sick from drinking unclean surface water. And this is what we're left with as a result.
Now equipped with filters, the bucket ministry was born as Beth returned to Brazil, supplying communities with clean, safe drinking water. Today, the ministry has a growing presence in more than 20 countries.
In the last 10 years, we've probably distributed in excess of 250,000. So we've helped about 250,000 families. Just last year alone, we distributed about 35,000.
One of its main outreaches is in the Kibera slum in Nairobi, Kenya, home to some 400,000 people. Most human waste ends up in the river that runs through the slum, contaminating the water, leading to disease and death. Daryl Larson serves as International Director for Sawyer Products, which makes the filter used by the ministry.
Our filter that you could take, the same one that backpackers and hikers use on the trail, but we devised a way to hook it up to a bucket, which is very common all around the world. And that's kind of how the bucket ministry started.
Larson says when his company, which gives 90% of its annual profits to clean water projects, learned that Beth wanted to give clean water to the entire Kibera slum, it jumped at the opportunity to get involved.
He had this incredible map of the slum, 3 square miles, 400,000 people, and it ended up being 95,000 homes, and Sawyer actually donated all 95,000 of the filters.
The difference has been life-saving, as the number of people sick and dying from waterborne illness has dropped dramatically.
We are hearing reports that the numbers of patients coming through clinics are so few compared to what it was that clinics are having to close and consolidate operations.
Providing clean water has also led to many opportunities to share the gospel.
We use the water as a tool, and it's a tool to get to that point of sharing the gospel. So for us, it's all about the Great Commission and going and making disciples.
The filter can last more than 20 years if cleaned daily. Each filter distributed is stamped with a unique barcode, something that allows Beth and his team to track the success of the filter, as well as the physical and spiritual health of families and communities they serve.
I've been blessed over 10 years to be able to see mothers that didn't name their children because they knew the children were going to die. I get to see them have this clean water for the first time through this simple tool.
A simple tool that's made a big difference in Beth's life, too.
Prior to the last 10 years, I was not involved with the church. I wasn't even a very good follower of Jesus. now I get to see him work every single day. And what it's done for me is it's given me a faith that I don't think I would have ever had without seeing him work like this.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News, Houston.
Awesome story of yielding to the voice of God. Well, coming up, a special day of baptisms marking the anniversary of an historic move of God here in the U.S. We'll bring you that story when we come back. Stay with us.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place, all day, every day. The CBN News Channel. Download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com. CBN News.
Finally today in Southern California, a throwback to the Jesus People movement on Pentecost Sunday. More than 4,000 people were baptized in Pirates Cove, and that's the same beach that saw thousands of baptisms during the movement in the 60s and 70s. More than 280 churches took part in the event called Baptize SoCal, organized by Oceans Church. It was held to mark the 50th anniversary of the Christian awakening known as the Jesus People movement that saw hundreds of thousands of young people come to Christ. God is on the move in this day and age. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen by emailing newswatch@cbn.com, or you can talk to us on social media. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.